Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Tuesday, February 5th, 2019. We're at 2 this week. Already doing better than last week. So, sorry, dead air is never a good thing. I think the uhs and the ums are preferable to dead air. I did get to listen to yesterday's cast. Seems like the best audio quality I've had since I started recording again, so that's exciting. I sat through Versus Live today. Today was a little hard. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even think Nexus players... Well, he was playing Simic Nexus, but I don't think even the players playing Nexus actually enjoy what's going on in that game. And I think Ross technically ended up besting him today. Maybe? I don't know, it was really hard to pay attention. Like, just so hard. During the Azurius Hygro match, I know Ross won that one. They had some technical difficulties, and I was almost glad for it, because I was just a little hard, especially match 1. That was especially rough because it was Esper Control versus Simic Nexus. And they ended up calling it even at a draw. They were 1-1. Because, like, yeah, we kind of can't waste any more time on this. And in a real tournament setting, they would have likely timed out the match. Like, they would have hit time in Game 3 and ended up with a 1-1-1 situation anyway. That was particularly rough, and that they started there. I think when running a gauntlet with a deck like that, they might be further ahead to start with the aggro match. To, like, keep things moving, get people interested, get people asking questions in the chat, get people interacting and kind of vested in what's going on. And then, I don't know how to sequence the other ones. Like, do you do the control one last? Because then people are like, this is the last game anyway, and I really, I just don't care. Or do you stick it in the middle so that you don't lose viewers that say want to see what the last match is? I don't know. But opening on the Dirtle v Dirtle that was a little rough. Also, man, there are some salty people in that chat. Like, I hadn't noticed. I was watching the chat more today just because I got tired of my work network gets really buggy about Twitch, and, like, streams randomly lag, or, like, I'll get a network error and I've got to refresh and get something with the firewall. Our Wi-Fi just straight blocks it. So I went online and looked at my mobile account because I couldn't remember how much data we signed on for. And, no, we got plenty. So I ended up just streaming it on my mobile data because I got tired of dealing with the issues. Should probably just go around this freaking bus. Oh well, we're just not. So I got to see the chat more because, like, I could look down at my phone, and yeah, man, people just calm down, have some dip. Nobody's making you watch the stream. You're not happy with how they do things. Like, SCG is actually really responsive when people are like, so you're doing this thing, and I don't like it. Now, of course, they're not going to cater to a single person. That's not how the world works. But if enough people say, I really dislike the thing, can we not do the thing anymore? They change things. They cut down on their team events and added more standard events in because a lot of the coverage viewers were like, well, viewers and SCG Tour attendees were like, you know, I miss when Standard was a thing. Especially, like, real early in the Standard format. Because it's way more exciting than Modern. Because, like, new Standard cards affecting Modern generally takes longer for somebody to do something that reaches coverage. Because it takes a little, like, you have a much bigger pool of cards to work with. It takes longer to pick through all the interactions and go, oh shit, you know what? If you run Scrap Trawler in KCI, this is great. Whereas Standard's immediately affected by new cards hitting the format, especially if there's rotation. And yeah, team events are hard to watch. Because they bounce around what format they cover, like, a lot. And personally, Legacy Opens, I don't watch, generally. I just don't tune into them. Because I don't know what the cards are, like, I don't know what the decks are. I'm not really interested in learning the format, so it has, like, zero interest for me. And, like, sometimes, you know, because you can see at the top of the screen, like, who all's on the team and what everybody's playing in each format. And, like, you're covering the Modern match that's, like, I don't know, elves v humans. That it's just kind of a grind fest over, you know, who can get there faster. But, like, you look at the two Standard decks and you're like, now that sounds like an interesting match. Why aren't you covering that one? God damn it, guys. I don't know who makes the decisions. I don't know why they decide to cover what they cover, and, you know, I don't know anything about that, and I'm sure there's reasons, and I'm sure there's a protocol. But that's what can be frustrating about watching team events, especially if you're really only interested in one of the three formats. Like, at least I have two of the three that I'm like, oh yeah, I can watch this. But if you're, like, only into Modern, or only into Standard, or only into Legacy, to have to sit through these other matches that are not the format you want to be watching, it's just, I don't know. So from, like, a viewer standpoint, I don't really care for watching coverage of the Team Opens, aside from, I will say, the whole Team Get Tannin a Trophy thing, because Team BCW always seems to do, like, really well, like, top 8. Now, this time around, I guess they missed it on Breakers. They were 9th. And God, that blows. I remember the one PPTQ I did. You know, at the end of Swiss, they post the top 8, and, you know, I'm like 9th place or whatever. And I'm like, oh, shame, whatever. And, you know, I go out to my car and everything, and I'm getting ready to go, and it's when Dodger still worked at the store. Yeah, he comes running out to my car, and he's like, whoa, you know, do you want to stay and play your quarterfinals match? Apparently, a result set had gotten entered in wrong, and by reversing who won and lost that match, changed the points for everybody, and I ended up in the top 8 because I had better breakers than the person who ended up winning that match. As opposed to if the other person had won, they had better breakers than me. It's tournament math is freaking weird. Like, just completely strange. Why traffic? Whatever. So, I do enjoy the saga of Team Get Tannin a Trophy. I still feel like, you know, one of these times he's going to get this trophy, and then we're all going to sit there and be like, great, what do we do with our lives now? But aside from that, like, there's not much value to me in watching team. And as far as participating in team events, that's difficult. Finding a team, getting everybody on the same page, I got so anxious about this damn event towards the end of last week because, I have a 3-month-old at home. And she had gotten sick this winter, and, she actually got to spend a night in the hospital and everything. So I'm worried she's going to get sick. I'm worried I'm going to get sick. I'm worried that husband's going to get sick. I'm not as worried about Boo or Bird getting sick because they're older, and if they get sick, chances are that it just makes them easier to take care of because they're just going to lay in bed all day. Yeah, I'm just stressed out that I'm going to have to bail on my team at the last minute, and that's going to suck, and and I ended up being able to go and everything. It's just a lot of stress leading up to it, and that sucks. Not to mention, I'm a decent player. I do all right at F&M, I have a good time with it and everything. But there's suddenly... I'm fine going to play in an open and, going 2-7. But getting to fangirl at all these players that I like and everything. And... just kind of, my carpool, somebody's doing well. Cool. I'll stay and I'll just keep playing in the tournament. Even though we're deeply in the losers bracket now and half my opponents aren't going to show up for my rounds. But whatever, if I can get more games in, cool. I don't mind losing on my own behalf. But when it comes to being part of a team and having them... depending on my record, I feel more of a drive to do better. So that's stressful. Is oh man, what if I completely just flail? What's? And then my team's gonna be all pissed. You couldn't win a match, and granted, the 2 team events I've done. The teams that asked me to participate with them, they knew what they were in for when they asked me to team with them. Neither one was particularly, you're losing. What are you doing? But it's a personal stress thing. And I think that's why I got so annoyed when Mirror Match made a comment about I had asked for his guidance so much, so I didn't win those games on my own. Because here I am, straight neck decklist. I haven't even bothered to look through and evaluate, why this card, why this card, why this card. Which is what I usually do when I pull a deck list online. And if there are cards that I don't understand and or don't like, I cut them and I put something else in there. When everybody was you play Wingmate Rock and Mardu midrange. I couldn't raid that freaking bird for anything. And if you don't raid it, it's really crappy. Stormbreath Dragon, on the other hand, for the same converted mana cost, still in your Mardu colors, it's instant value when it hits the table. Okay, it may eat a kill spell before it gets to do anything, but if it doesn't, it's a 5/5 flying with, I want to say he had trample for 5 plus pro white, which was heavy in that format. Seems good. And I mean, I get it. Yeah, if you can raid Wingmate Rock was slightly better value on a raid. But if you can't raid it, that card was awful. It was less value than a bear. But didn't have a chance to evaluate the deck list. One of the big things is in Indy, Caleb had played 2 active trees in the sideboard. And then his proposed changes for the deck for Baltimore had 2 active trees in instead. or to hijack instead. He had act of treason and went to hijacks. And yeah, for the life of me, I have no idea why hijack. Like, what artifact are you trying to take? That is an on-ramp, friend, and it ends. Where, like, yeah, traffic's annoying, but you pulling shit like that's not gonna make it any better for anybody. Whatever. But, you know, whatever. I just played the list as it was. I used the sideboard guide, which I never do. And no judgment on people who do. It's just like, it's a me thing. I never use sideboard guides, but here I was, sideboarding exactly how he said, even though, like, it didn't quite make sense to me. Like, most matchups, you took out the Viashino Pyromancers, and then Wizard's Lightnings, which, if you're taking out Wizards, it makes sense to cut down on your Wizard's Lightnings as, you know, the burn spell you choose to, you know, run a few less copies of, because you're less likely to be able to cast it for one. Okay, that part makes sense. But why the Viashinos? That doesn't make sense to me. Personally, I'd rather take out Lava Runners, because Viashino always has 2 power. Does 2 damage when it enters the battlefield, so if it gets fragged before it gets to attack, that's fine. Does cost 2 over the Lava Runners only costing 1, and, you know, if you have the 2 instants and sorceries in the graveyard, they become a 2/2 with haste, so I can see logic on both sides, but personally, I'd rather have the Viashinos. But I'm going to do exactly what Caleb says to do, because I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know the format. I have to assume there's a good reason for it. So, the one portion where I had to think for myself, and being the actual piloting and the gameplay, to be told that I wasn't even doing that, you know, stung. And I know that's not how he meant it. I get it. That I take it this way because of all this internalized crap. You know, that voice in the back of my head that says you're not good enough. I like to call it brain. So, yeah, people complained about team events. They cut down on team events. That's where I started this, I think. So, I mean, there is a certain value in expressing discontent with something, malcontent with something. I should really use words that actually exist. But to do it in, like, just a pissy, bitchy manner, I don't think they're going to listen to you. I think you're wasting your time and just, like, trying to spread some misery around, and no thanks. I got plenty of that. But in any case, Simic Nexus really doesn't look that great. And no, I'm not great at evaluating blue stuff. Blue is gross. Oh, I see the reflection of police lights up there. Must have been an accident. Is there one of those arrowy bits? Is that what I'm seeing? There is. Alright. Oh, this is a mess. But even Todd was talking about, who definitely is way more of an expert on blue than I am, that it just doesn't quite have the strength. When you go Bant, you get access to things like Revitalize, which has been actually very important to the Bant control style lists, because it keeps you going longer. I mean, that's a big thing, especially in a format where mono red is so fucking good. Like, mono red is, I would say, the current mono red option is is as good, if not better, than Rami Red was. Difference being, it's not that there's a plethora of decks that can stand up to it. We're not in a 2-deck format, but it's got just amazing card draw, because that's usually aggro's problem, is that you're top decking by like turn 3, and if you hit a flood of lands, you're boned like super hardcore. That's it, you're done. But with card draw acceleration that Red's got going on between Light Up the Stage and not the Frenzy one, Risk Factor, it's great. I personally don't like Experimental Frenzy. I have never had good luck with it. It's been that card that, like, it hits the battlefield, and I'm like, okay, I didn't play a land for turn, so I'll play that land. Okay, fine. Alright, I'm gonna draw this land, and oh, it's another land. Alright, land for turn. Oh, it's another one. Yay. Like, I've just never had a good time with it. But it is a card acceleration, so if it works for you, cool. But Red just has so many options to keep hand advantage going. You know, Rami Red's advantage in that arena was lands were still live draws by the mid to late game. So, if you flooded, okay, well, you know, not the best, but either activating Hazoret and pitching them, or activating Ruins and hitting your opponent. Either way, you had something to do with them. Yeah, it sucks to hit a Light Up the Stage and grab 2 lands off of it, but now that's 2 draw steps that those lands are out of the way. If you lose 1 to exile, you probably don't care. Like, if you already played your land for the turn to play the Light Up the Stage, it doesn't matter that you're only going to get to play one of those 2. You just saved yourself from drawing lands 2 turns in a row. And Risk Factor, man, that's a win-win. They either take 4 damage for 3 mana, so it's a little expensive on the damage race, but honestly, not awful. They either take 4 damage or they give you 3 cards. Either way, you win on that exchange. So yeah, Mono Red is in just a great space. So because of that, cards like Revitalize have way more play than they would elsewise. Because sometimes getting to cast 2 of them is just enough to get you over the hump to stabilize and, you know, shut down the red deck. That now, instead of sitting at 3 life praying they don't top deck a burn spell, you're sitting at 6 life, and, well, now they need to top deck 2. And you're playing Bant, so you have counter spells and shit to help out. Well, I guess it wasn't a Nexus deck. He didn't play Nexus of Fate. His Teamer Wilderness Reclamation deck, alright, that looked pretty neat. And basically the end game on that one was to get a couple Reclamations down and, you know, a fair amount of lands. And then end step, tap out, float the mana, untap with first Wilderness Reclamation, tap out again, float the mana, untap with second, tap out again, and hit them with a gigantic expansion explosion. Well, a gigantic explosion, and if you happen to have, you know, 2 copies of the card, you could then expand it and double it. Which, if you're going to exploit Wilderness Reclamation, that seems the way to go. Something like, well, it almost has to be Explosion. It can't be Banefire, because Banefire is sorcery speed. But something good to do with all that mana. That even if you're not closing out the game, because explosion not only does damage, it draws you cards. So even if it's not enough to kill them, just take the wind out of their sails, you're refilling. Whereas, like, the Bantless that run Reclamation, even with Nexus, like, it's like, okay, you can produce 1 million mana, but do you have things to do with it? And there's a lot of, well, okay, I got counterspells. Great, you can stop me from doing things, but how is it that you kill me? Like, is your win con in this game me getting tired of playing it and scooping? Which is entirely possible it is. Because I honestly don't have the attention span for this shit. Anyway, Thursday they're going to do the I think it's mono blue aggro gauntlet. It's either mono blue or Azurius, but I'm pretty sure it's mono blue, that Tom Ross wrote about last week. I got to play against that at Showdown. And of course, because I don't really know what I'm doing with this red deck, like, if I don't have instructions, I didn't do so well against it. I did take a game, and I did play against one of, like, our top-end players at the store, so, like, looks like a neat deck. I'm excited to see that one way more than I was to see today's. But I stuck with it because I'm, huge fan of the SCG Tour. So I will support them through any nonsense they want to pull. But that's pretty much all I got for today. Sorry, content's a little light today. Hopefully I'll have a chance to see or hear or read something exciting tomorrow to talk about. But that's where we're at, and I'm pulling in the driveway now. So, as always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, especially today. This wasn't a great one. But hopefully I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.